It's been a while since my last review, but when I saw this upcoming release, I knew I just had to get a hold of it because I was such a big fan of the original Timex Q reissue. So today we're gonna take a look at the new Timex Q GMT. So while I unbox this, I will talk a little bit about that watch. The Timex Q, the original one here, is an old Timex design from, I believe, the 70s that has been reissued and was released a few years ago with pretty much modern technology. It was a pretty enormous success, and I myself, when I tried to get a hold of it, it was actually sold out. But after a while, it did come back in stock, and here it is. Actually, you know what? Let's take a look at that right now. I'm sure if you're watching this video, you've seen this watch at some point. It was just such a big success, and obviously you can see right off the bat why this would be so popular. Starting with the small case, we're looking at 38 millimeters at about 11.5 millimeters thick, and just the vintage design. When you get the colors on this are just perfect, and this really does look like a vintage watch. But it's not. It was released a few years ago, and actually the battery is dead on this one already, so keep that in mind. Well, anyway, when Timex announced this a few months back, that they're releasing this, here it is. You want to take a look at that text. I knew I just had to have this watch because of how much I thought the original one was a great design, and simply I'm just a big GMT lover. So here it is. So my first question was, when I saw it, is this going to be the same dimensions? And what I see on their website, it is not, and we'll take a look at the differences there. For some reason, I don't understand why there are such little options for affordable GMT watches. And I'm talking even quartz GMT watches. You just can't find them. Most brands don't really carry them, and your options are just very limited. So when I saw this at this price point, I truly don't think there are very many options that can beat this. Here we go. So I do believe this is advertised as a gunmetal version. They did release a Pepsi version too, but since I already had this one, I preferred to go with this. I thought this would be more of a versatile look with just black. I love the GMT hand giving a little bit of pop there. Let's still cover it a little bit here. So just handling it, it does feel very similar to the original Pepsi. But one of the dimension differences between the two, here we go, is that this was said to be about 1 millimeter thicker, and I do want to test it out. There it is. Let's pop this out. And it's ticking. Yeah, I think you can see it pretty well there. So this original Timex Q, the non-GMT version, is advertised at 11.5 millimeters thick. But look at that enormous tall crystal. I love that. It gives a big vintage feel, but that obviously does eat up some of the height. And this one, the new GMT, is advertised at 12.5. You know, and that's actually part of my criticism and desire for these GMT watches. For some reason, a lot of brands don't release affordable GMT watches, and when they do, they're simply really thick. I used to have a Seiko World Timer, which was very similar to this, aesthetically looking on the dial, but it was just enormous. It was a kinetic movement. It wasn't even a standard automatic movement, but it was just extremely big. I think it was like a 44 millimeters, and we're talking about something like 13-14 millimeters thick too, and it was just too big. But something like this, to me, there is definitely a market. This was actually sold out the day of release, so there's obviously a demand to it, the demand for it. But really, there's just not much more to be said. There's a crown, a signed crown. Besides that, one of the big differences I could tell, this is actually my first time holding both of these next to each other. One of the big differences is that they got rid of the day on here, and I'm actually not a big fan of that. I'm not a big fan of the day complication, so I love that on this watch. Now just looking at it, when you look at it a little bit closer, but it looks like they do have applied indices here, which is not the case over here. That's another one of the big differences that I've been able to catch here. Also here on the original Q, you do not have a signed crown. So this is actually exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to hold both of them next to each other and talk a little bit about the differences. Because even now, this watch, not on the metal bracelet, runs at around $199. With discount codes and so on, you can get it quite a bit cheaper. But to me, this is crazy that they're not advertising the big differences, because the non-GMT version comes in at a similar price. But you do get these small changes, like the GMT hand, like the applied indices, a signed crown. So to me, that's just something I wanted to highlight. Really, there's not much more to be said about this one. It's just a very... I'm surprised it took them this long to come out with this. It's just a winning formula. You have the great dimensions, a great price. You get a design that's been around literally for 50 years with modern tech. You could get these at under $200. It's just a winning formula all around, and I'm glad they went in this direction. Kept the dimensions, kept the price low, and I could totally see myself wearing this as kind of like a beater. I love GMT watches, and I just don't have a beater GMT watch, just because they tend to be bigger and more expensive. So before we end this, I did want to highlight the rubber strap here. Timex actually just released these rubber straps maybe a few weeks ago, and they should be able to fit all Timex Q models. Like I said, the Pepsi GMT comes in the bracelet, but I wanted to get a hold of this, and this seems to be some sort of rubber synthetic. Should be a lot more comfortable in the bracelet. I was not a big fan of this bracelet, but with this it should be a little more comfortable. It's thick but not too thick. It's pretty flexible. I could see myself going in the water with this and not having an issue. 2 stoppers, signed buckle. I'm not exactly sure if they're selling these yet. In my opinion, it's only a matter of time before they do, because so many of us have the original Q, and a lot of people just simply want it. So let's just one more time, let's go ahead and put them side to side. You can see that high crystal there. One of the most popular design choices for this. This case, I am a little just staring at it. I'm wondering how this is going to hold up with a lot of wear. I've had cases like this, and after a while they do get a little bit discolored. I personally like that discolored gunmetal look, but I'm not sure others will. I'll follow up after I wear this for a good while and see how that works. So one more thing, actually, I did want to check out the Lume, see how this is, and compare it to the original Timex Q. Alright, like always, we're not in complete darkness, so keep that in mind. Let's do this. Alright, that's actually, I was not expecting for them to Lume the GMT hand. A lot of watches don't do that, but that's a nice surprise. Here it is next to the original one. Now let's be honest here, the Lume is not going to be the brightest. You're not going to be able to compete with the Seiko watches. But again, to me, context is everything, and we're looking at a $200 price range. Even less for the non-GMT version. You're not going to get the best and brightest Lume at that price range. But the fact that this alone has applied indices that are all lumed, including all three hands. That's pretty hard to do pretty hard to beat in this kind of budget. So let's go ahead and throw this on the wrist and see how that wears. So on the wrist, it wears very similar to the original Q. I don't feel the extra thickness. The 38mm case is just perfect for me. For context, my wrist size is around 6.5, between 6.5 and 6.75 inches. But as you can see, it just disappears on the wrist. It looks really just seamless to wear. The black colors do make this a little bit more formal, so I think it will be a little bit more versatile for formal occasions while wearing like I am right now, a flannel shirt. But really, again, this is just an all-around winner for me. Everything works, the price is great, and like I said, I'm surprised it took Timex this long, but it's already all sold out, and I do suspect the demand for it will continue. All in all, it really is a fantastic watch.